there, this is All 24 News World News program broadcasting live from the capital Algiers. I'm your host Islam Said, and these are tonight's top stories. Algeria hosts Peace of North Africa 3 drill, with the Army Chief of Staff Shingriha calling it a boost for regional military ties as the North African bloc praises Algeria's role in its success. Next up, Gaza sees more deadly strikes. Al-Qassam says it hit 10 Zionist soldiers in Beit Lahia. UN calls 8 plans distraction and demands open crossings. Coming up as well, after Russia's biggest strikes yet on Ukraine, Trump says Putin playing with fire. Zelensky warns the escalation derails peace efforts, while Moscow says it's still working on a draft peace deal. Full report straight ahead. Welcome back to the program. Leading on news tonight, Algeria launched the North African Regional Capability (NORC) drill, North Africa Peace 3, on May 17 at the Moir Jalloul Abidat Infantry School in Sharshal. The drills, running until May 29, aim to boost operational readiness and coordination among NORC forces. Major General Hassan presided over the opening ceremony, joined by NORC military representatives and Executive Secretary Ahmed Tajiri. Observers from the African Union and Afripol, as well as NORC member troops, also attended. In a video conference address, Minister Delegate to the Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army General Said Shingriha highlighted the North Africa Peace 3 exercise as a key commitment by NORC members to bolster continental peace and security. He stressed advancing Africa's strategic goals for stability and prosperity under the African Union's framework.
يطيب لي في مستهل هذه الكلمة.
It gives me great pleasure at the outset of this address to welcome you all to Algeria on the occasion of the launch of the North Africa Peace Exercise 3, which coincides with our celebration yesterday of Africa Day. This initiative reflects our firm commitment to supporting the African peace and security architecture and strengthening regional military cooperation under the banner of the African Union, with the aim of achieving the continent's strategic goals for peace and security, particularly in making Africa more stable and prosperous. This is a goal to which Algeria is deeply dedicated, and we're honored to have once again been elected as a member of the African Union Peace and Security Council.
Similarly, Army General Said Shingriha emphasized President Tebboun's strong commitment as Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense to strengthening African defense cooperation, particularly in North Africa, as the region's nations train together in the North Africa Peace 3 drill.
كما أغتنم هذه السانحة.
I would also like to take this opportunity to convey to you the greetings of His Excellency Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, President of the Republic, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense, who attaches great importance to the activation of African cooperation mechanisms, especially within the shared geographical space in North Africa.
Meanwhile, Major General Hassan affirmed that hosting the North Africa Peace 3 drill reflects the region's operational readiness and strong resolve. He stressed the significance of holding the drill soon after the African Union confirmed the region's full preparedness, especially amid rising international tensions and growing internal crises across Africa.
This exercise, which my country is proud to host, is yet another strong confirmation of North Africa's readiness and determination, especially following the recent statement by the African Union High Representative, affirming the region's full preparedness to carry out assigned missions. In light of accelerating global changes and internal crises in our continent, we must join efforts and unify our capacities to uphold the principle of African solutions to African problems. On behalf of the Army General, Minister Delegate to National Defense Minister, and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, I officially declare the launch of Field Exercise North Africa Peace 3 and wish you a pleasant stay in your second home, Algeria.
On a related note, North Africa Regional Capability NORC Executive Secretary Ahmed Tajiri stated the ongoing North Africa Peace 3 drill represents a crucial step in activating the African Standby Force, aligning with continental peace and security goals. Tajiri specifically applauded Algeria's organizational efforts, calling this a pivotal moment following the African Union Commission's approval of regional readiness. He highlighted the exercise's tight coordination among participants as evidence of their professional commitment to the mission.
I extend my sincere thanks to the Algerian state, its leadership and people for their generous hospitality and the extensive support provided, from preparing the sites to supplying the massive equipment and resources that played a major role in the success of this exercise. My gratitude also goes to everyone involved in this preparation over the past period, particularly the General Staff of the Algerian People's National Army, the planning teams and all components of the force. I reiterate my thanks to the member state for recognizing the importance of conducting this field exercise at such a crucial and decisive stage, especially following the African Union Commission's endorsement of the region's readiness. This recognition will enable us to carry out realistic peace support missions.
In a related story, Minister Delegate to the Minister of Defense and Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Said Chengriha supervised live-fire tactical exercises during his inspection of the 2nd Military Region. The Resilience 2025 drills, conducted by the 36th Mechanized Infantry Brigade with multi-unit support, represented the climax of the 2024-2025 combat training cycle. Defense Ministry reports noted Chengriha received detailed briefings on the exercise's objectives and execution phases designed to enhance combat readiness. Observing maneuvers firsthand, the Army Chief of Staff witnessed what officials described as highly professional combat operations, demonstrating superior tactical execution across all unit levels. Still with Algeria-related news, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune chaired a credential ceremony Tuesday at Al Muradia Palace for 3 newly appointed ambassadors. They include Ansari Savina Claudia, UN Resident Coordinator in Algeria, Khatri Adu Khatri, Ambassador of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, and Catherine Naugin Konge, Ambassador of Malawi, according to a statement from the presidency.
Your Excellency, it's an honor for me to present letter of credence
UN Resident Coordinator Ansari Savina Claudia lauded Algeria's sustained support for UN initiatives, highlighting the significance of their bilateral cooperation framework during her credentials presentation.
This country is immensely rich in its historical, geographical and cultural dimensions. I have personally witnessed the kindness of its people, and of course I am very happy to be here today to begin my 5-year term. What challenges me the most is that Algeria has always upheld pluralism and strongly supported multilateral organizations, especially the United Nations. That's why I believe I am in the right place.
Moving on to a different matter now, the Polizario Front is calling out Morocco for blocking UN monitors and media from Western Sahara while continuing human rights abuses. The world needs to break this silence, said the group's UN representative, Sidi Mohamed Omar, stressing the Sahrawi people, already AU members, have built functioning state institutions despite the occupation.
Many of our Sahrawi people have been living under Moroccan occupation for 50 years, in what is often described as the largest open-air prison on earth. This occupation continues to commit serious human rights violations, while barring UN bodies, international observers, and media outlets from accessing the territory. We call on free media to break the wall of silence and the media blackout imposed on the occupied land. It is important to stress that we are not just a community of refugees. We have built a state with full institutions, and we are founding members with full membership in the African Union.
A march calling for freedom for Sahrawi political detainees in Moroccan jails reached Seville today, its seventh Spanish stop after visits to multiple cities and Quneitra. The demonstrators staged a sit-in urging Morocco to release all Sahrawi prisoners, particularly the Agdimizi group, while pressing Spain to fulfill its legal and moral duties toward the Sahrawi peoples, according to the Sahrawi news agency.
Today we had the honor of welcoming the March of Freedom. The whole world is watching what is happening in Western Sahara, and we are taking this opportunity to denounce the position of the Socialist Workers' Party, which has remained silent in the face of the violations suffered by the Sahrawi people, whose rights are being systematically violated by the Moroccan government. We call on the Spanish government and Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez to respect United Nations resolutions and to recognize the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination.
Switching focus to the war on Gaza now, occupation airstrikes across Gaza Strip killed at least 26 Palestinians and wounded dozens more on Tuesday, according to local sources, as heavy air and ground attacks continued throughout the besieged territory. The latest casualties come amid relentless bombardment that has persisted since dawn. On Tuesday, the Hassan brigades announced they targeted a Zionist force of 10 soldiers when an anti-personnel shell in Al-Atatra area of Beit Lahia, northern Gaza Strip, killing and wounding several. The group confirmed the strike following their combat operations. A UN humanitarian official on Tuesday rejected the proposed US-backed private aid operations for Gaza, calling it a diversion from the real solution, fully reopening crossings. This is not what's needed, said the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs spokesperson Hans Lerck in Geneva, explaining the UN's refusal to participate in the Israeli occupation-approved Gaza Relief Foundation mission. He demanded the Zionist occupation instead reopen all border crossings and accelerate emergency supply approvals.
Would be a bit of a repetition. As we have explained many times, we do not participate in this modality for the reasons that we have given. It is a distraction from what is actually needed, which is a reopening of all the crossings into Gaza, a secure environment within Gaza, and faster facilitation of permissions and final approvals of all the emergency supplies that we have just outside the border and needs to get in.
On a similar note, the World Health Organization reported on Tuesday that 42% of essential medicines, including basic painkillers, have been depleted in Gaza Strip, with most medical equipment stocks completely exhausted. The UN agency revealed 51 loaded aid trucks remain stuck awaiting occupation permits, exacerbating a crisis that has forced hospitals to ration intravenous fluids, surgical supplies, and bandages for life-saving operations.
The majority of medical equipment stock in Gaza has been depleted, with a severe shortage of 42% of essential medicines, including painkillers. Stock levels have dropped to zero for 64% of medical equipment, 43 of essential medicines, and 42 of vaccines. There is also a critical shortage of medications for chronic illnesses. 51 shipments of medical aid are currently awaiting permits to enter Gaza. This shortage has had a direct impact on surgical operations due to the lack of IV fluids, syringes, and bandages.
Switching focus to other development in the Middle East still, Yemen's Houthi group said they launched a dual missile attack on Tuesday targeting Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport and a Zionist occupation facility in Jaffa. Military spokesman Yahya Sarriah claimed one hypersonic missile hit Lod airport while another struck a strategic target east of the city, paralyzing the air traffic.
In response to the storming of Al-Aqsa Mosque by thousands of Zionist Jews and their desecration of its sacred courtyards, the Yemeni Armed Forces Missile Force carried out a qualitative dual military operation with 2 ballistic missiles. One was a hypersonic Palestine II missile targeting the Lod airport, known in Israel as Ben Gurion Airport, in the occupied Jaffa region. The other was a Dulfikar missile that targeted a vital target of the eastern Zionist enemy in the occupied Jaffa region. The operation and its objective were successfully achieved, thanks be to God.
And as you followed in our headlines, former US President Donald Trump escalated his rhetoric against Vladimir Putin on Tuesday, calling the Russian leader completely crazy for the Ukraine invasion and warning he's playing with fire. In a Truth Social post, Trump says he's done a lot to protect Russia, but Putin doesn't realize it. The remarks mark Trump's harshest criticism yet of his long-time admirer over the war's civilian casualties. And in the latest updates on this file, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned Russia's latest barrage of attacks as militarily meaningless but politically significant in a Monday night address. He revealed Moscow had launched over 900 drones and missiles across 3 nights of strikes, calling it a proof of Putin's deliberate choice to prolong the war and casualties. The president urged stronger international pressure on Russia to stop the assaults.
Russian strikes are becoming more audacious and widespread every night. More than 900 attack drones were launched at Ukraine in just 3 days, along with the ballistic and cruise missiles. There is no military logic to this, but it is a clear political choice, Putin's choice, Russia's choice, the choice to continue in waging war and destroying lives.
On the other hand, the Kremlin said the US and President Trump are approaching the Ukrainian peace process in a balanced way. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov noted gradual progress but acknowledged serious challenges due to the issue's complexity. The Kremlin also criticized some media for pushing campaigns that disrupt negotiations and urged the US to impose new sanctions.
We take this into consideration, but at the same time, the Americans and President Trump demonstrate quite a balanced approach. It is clear that not everything is simple. It is also clear that they want everything to go faster. But such a complicated matter related to eliminating the root causes of the conflict, of course, it takes time. The work is going on.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated on Tuesday that sustainable peace in Ukraine requires addressing the conflict's underlying origins, while defending Moscow's strikes as retaliation for Ukrainian attacks on Russian civilian infrastructure. During talks with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan, Lavrov framed the bombardment as countermeasures rather than escalation.
President Trump is a person who wants a result, and when he sees that his efforts to promote the settlement as they agreed with the Russian President Putin, including the meeting in Istanbul, including the accord to exchange memorandums between Russia and Ukraine, which will contain not just baseless demands as a smokescreen for continuation of aggressive anti-Russian policy, but the specific components for solution of this issue aimed at elimination of the root causes.
For his part, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan reaffirmed Turkey's readiness to host peace talks on Ukraine, calling it a regional responsibility his country is committed to. Let's take a listen.
Ankara is always ready to provide any assistance in resolving the conflict in Ukraine, including negotiations between the parties. Mr. Putin has personally sent a delegation to Istanbul, and we are pleased to complete the prisoner exchange process agreed upon during the talks.
The Russian Foreign Ministry announced on Tuesday it is drafting a memorandum of understanding for potential peace treaty with Ukraine. Spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said the document will outline core settlement principles, a proposed timeline, and a ceasefire conditions. Zakharova stated Moscow expects Kiev to present its own version of the memorandum concurrently, while noting previous Istanbul agreements had stalled due to Ukraine's stance. Moving on to another global news story, the US and EU are at odds over a trade deal with President Donald Trump threatening a 50% tariff on European goods if no agreement is reached by July 9. While talks are ongoing, major sticking points remain. Morobalewa reports.
You all set?
President Trump says Europe sells far more to the US than it buys, a trade gap in goods of 157 billion euros last year. But EU officials argue that when services like cloud computing and online ads are included, the real gap drops to 48 billion, nearly balanced trade.
The EU would like to de-escalate. If there's a compromise that can be found that would take the tension out of the system, that would just pull everyone back from the brink and get rid of some of this uncertainty, that's something Brussels would very much like. If it does go into all-out trade war, Brussels will have to retaliate, and that's something that will take a lot of time, a lot of energy, and have a lot of costs to the real economy.
Experts say one possible bargaining chip could be energy. With plans to phase out Russian gas by 2027, the EU could increase purchases of US liquefied natural gas. Another flashpoint observers suggest is cars. The US wants the EU's 10% tariff on foreign vehicles lowered, but that's potentially sensitive in Europe. Agricultural imports may prove the most difficult, economists say. Washington wants the EU to allow hormone-treated beef and chlorine-washed chicken, but analysts say Europe sees these as public health issues, not negotiable trade barriers.
When you get into health and safety and rules and environmental rules, you're talking about the way countries organize their economies and their societies. You know, we think it's protection, they think it's health. You know, and telling them you need to take our chickens is telling them they need to lower their safety standards. And that's a bigger, much bigger ask. And there's a much bigger political cost in Europe if they agree to that. So it's going to be a hard negotiation.
Trump has also criticized Europe's value-added tax system, but economists say VAT is standard in global trade, and the EU has ruled out changing it.
It's not clear what, if anything, the specific substantive disagreements are about. President Donald Trump has a lot of complaints about the EU and about the way it runs its tax system and its regulations and in general the way it runs its economy. Are these things that the US can negotiate? Depends on what they're trying to accomplish.
Experts say Trump's pressure tactics could yield partial wins, as seen in past talks with other countries, but with core disagreements unresolved, and comprehensive US-EU trade deal remains a distant goal.
Other news, a late-night mass shooting in Philadelphia's Fairmount Park killed 2 people and injured 9 others on Monday, including 3 teenagers. According to police, the gunfire broke out around 10:27 p.m. Police confirmed that the fatalities involved 1 adult male and 1 adult female. Among the wounded were victims aged 15, 16, and 17. British authorities confirmed on Monday's vehicle collision with soccer fans in Liverpool, which left 27 injured, was an isolated incident with no terrorism link. Police stated they've arrested the sole suspect, a 53-year-old local man, and aren't seeking additional individuals in connection with the incident. That's the end of our news program for tonight. For more updates, you can always visit our social media platforms as well as our website. I'm Islam Said on behalf of All 24 News team. Thank you for tuning in. Good night.